one of the greatest sources of stress in our lives is the illusion that we can somehow predict, control, or perfectly prepare for the future. We obsess over it. We map it out in our minds like a chessboard, thinking 10 moves ahead, as if life ever follows the script we write for it. But the truth is, no one really knows what's coming. Not me, not you, not even the so-called experts. The future is a mystery, and it always will be. That's not something to fear of, it's something to accept. Because when we do, we free ourselves from the weight of trying to control what was never ours to control in the first place. Think about it this way: how much time do we spend worrying about things that haven't happened yet? How much mental energy is wasted playing out scenarios in our heads that may never come true? We convince ourselves that if we just plan better, work harder, or think longer, we'll feel safer about what's coming next. But here's the catch: worry doesn't eliminate uncertainty. It only eliminates our peace of mind. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't plan, or that you should just drift through life without direction. Planning is smart. But worrying is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. What's far more important than worrying about the future is focusing on what you can do today, right now. Because this moment, this day, is the only time you ever really own, and how you handle this moment determines what kind of future you'll walk into. There's a Chinese proverb I love: worry not that no one knows you, seek to be worth knowing. It's not about being recognized now or even having a crystal clear vision of your destiny. It's about becoming the kind of person today who can handle whatever the future holds. Build the character. Build the discipline. Build the mindset. The future is not a fixed destination. It's the result of millions of small decisions you make in the present. If you look at history, of all great transformations started with people who acted in the moment, not with people who waited until everything was certain. Steve Jobs didn't know the iPhone would revolutionize communication. Elon Musk didn't know Tesla would survive. Jack Ma didn't know Alibaba would become what it is today. What they all did was focus intensely on what they could control right now. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't wait for perfect conditions. They moved, they acted. They focused on solving a real problem in front of them. And the future was built along the way. And this applies to your personal life just as much as your career. Stop waiting until you have it all figured out. To start that project, to learn that skill, to rebuild that relationship, to take care of your health, you don't need certainty to make progress. You just need clarity about the next step, one step. That's enough. Psychologically, this shift is powerful. When we stop fixating on the unknowns of tomorrow and anchor ourselves in what we can do today, we reduce anxiety. We become more productive, more confident. Our minds stop racing and we start to act. That's how momentum is built. And momentum, not motivation, is what moves us forward. Philosophically, this is ancient wisdom. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, they all taught this: control what you can, let go of what you can't. Why are we still trying to win a game they already gave us the rules for? Because it's hard. Yes, it's hard. But that's also why it's powerful. The people who master this are calm under pressure. They're adaptable. They don't panic when plans fall apart because their confidence isn't built on a specific outcome. It's built on the strength they've built within themselves. The irony is, the more we try to control the future, the more it controls us. The more we let go of that need to predict, the more present we become. And in that presence lies our true power. That's where the real work gets done. Not in our fears of tomorrow, but in our actions today. So if there's one thing you take away from this moment, let it be this: don't waste your life preparing to live. Live it now. Build it now. The future isn't waiting for you to be ready. It's being shaped right here in the decisions you make today. Let me tell you something that most people forget when they're caught up in fear about the future: you are more adaptable than you think. Human beings, by design, are problem solvers. We're built to evolve, to adjust, to overcome. But somewhere along the way, we stop trusting that ability. We start thinking we need all the answers in advance. We start believing that if we don't have everything figured out today, we won't survive what's coming tomorrow. That belief is not only false, it's paralyzing. Life doesn't ask you to be ready for everything. It asks you to be willing. Willing to grow, willing to learn, willing to step into the unknown with courage instead of fear. Look at your own life. Think back to something you once thought you couldn't get through. Maybe it was a loss, a failure, a breakup, a missed opportunity, or even a period where nothing seemed to be working. And yet, here you are. You're still standing. Or maybe not with everything you had before, but with more experience, more wisdom, more strength than you had back then. That's adaptation. That's growth. And it didn't happen because you predicted every detail of the future. It happened because in the moment, when life forced you to choose, you didn't collapse. You adjusted, maybe slowly, maybe imperfectly, but you moved forward. That's the real you, not the one that panics, not the one that overthinks, but the one that shows up when it really matters. And yet, what do? We doubt ourselves. We say, what if I fail? What if things don't work out? What if I'm not good enough? But rarely do we ask the opposite. What if I succeed? What if I figure it out along the way? What if I'm more capable than I've allowed myself to believe? See, the problem is not the future. The problem is the story you're telling yourself about who you are and what you can handle. And often, that story is outdated. It's based on fear, not fact. Based on old experiences that no longer define you, or on someone else's voice you internalized as your own. But if you don't rewrite that story, you'll keep making small decisions based on a small version of yourself, and then wonder why your future feels limited. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you really surprised yourself? When was the last time you did something you didn't think you were ready for, but you did it anyway, and it turned out okay? That's not luck. That's your potential showing itself. But potential only becomes reality when you trust it enough to act on it. This is not just motivational talk. Psychologically, this is rooted in something called the growth mindset, a concept popularized by Dr. Carol Dweck. It's the idea that your abilities aren't fixed, that you can develop them through effort, feedback, and persistence. When you believe this, setbacks don't feel like permanent failures, they feel like part of the process. And suddenly, the fear of the future starts to lose its power. Because if you can learn, you can grow. And if you can grow, you can adapt to whatever comes. Philosophically, this idea isn't new. The ancient Greeks talked about arti, living up to your full potential through constant striving and self-improvement. The Stoics taught us that our power lies not in what happens, but in how we respond to what happens. That's why Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." We invent fears about a future we haven't lived yet and then we live in reaction to those fears instead of facing reality. And here's the irony, the future that you're so worried about. It never arrives all at once. It comes in small moments, one decision at a time, one conversation, one opportunity, one challenge. That's it. And every time you meet one of those moments with presence, with effort, with resilience, you're shaping your future. Not by predicting it, but by responding to it with strength. You want to be successful. You want to be fulfilled. Then stop chasing certainty. Start building capability. That's what lasts. That's what carries you through. You won't always have control over what happens to you, but you always have control over how prepared you are to respond. Build your mind. Sharpen your skills. Strengthen your character. Because when the future arrives, and it always does, you don't rise to the level of your plans. You fall to the level of your training. In business, we've seen this over and over. The most successful companies didn't always have perfect forecasts. They had people who could think fast, move smart, and pivot when needed. Look at Jack Ma. He didn't have government support. He wasn't a tech genius. What he had was the ability to learn faster than his competitors and the courage to act on his vision before it was obvious. That's the mindset you need. Not fear of the unknown, but faith in your ability to grow into the person who can handle the unknown. Because here's the truth. There is no version of the future where everything is certain, everything is comfortable, and everything goes according to plan. That world doesn't exist. What does exist is you, right here, right now, capable of far more than you realize if you'd only stop looking for guarantees and start building your resilience. So let me leave you with this. The future will challenge you, but you will not face it as you are now. You will face it as the person you're becoming, and that person is being shaped by what you choose to do today. Trust in your growth. Trust in your ability to adapt. And most of all, trust that you won't just survive the future. You'll rise to meet it.